Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Growth Digger, where we talk about everything growth and how you can unlock it, not just at the top of the funnel, but every stage of the funnel. My name is Taran Nanda. I'm the founder CEO at Growth Natives, and I'm your host for today. And Nick Jain, who's the CEO at IdeaScale, is our valuable guest for today. Today, we will talk about Nick's journey over the years and also about how he has unlocked amazing growth. For the companies that he has worked with, he has an amazing, diverse experience across many industries. We were talking earlier, and he shared that he started his career in the logistics space, and then before that, in fact, he was actually the banker on Wall Street, and then before that, after that, he's been working in the tech space. From an education perspective, he is a Harvard MBA, and it brings us some really interesting stories. Nick, thank you for joining us. And if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit more, I would love to hear a little bit more about your story, and then we'll get into the read.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you again for the wonderful, warm introduction. As you said, I'm Nick. I'm the CEO of IdeaScale. We are the largest innovation software company on the planet across 8 countries, hundreds of customers, been in business for about 15 years right now. Pfizer, Comcast, US Post Office, big meaty companies rely on us. As for me, prior to IdeaScale, I helped run a small shoe company. Prior to that, I ran a $100 million revenue trucking company. Prior to that, I worked on Wall Street. In my 2 prior operational roles in both trucking and shoes, I helped run marketing for both of those organizations and also helped run marketing here at IdeaScale, where we've been very successful at driving both kind of dramatic changes and improvements in our sales force, but also our marketing effectiveness. And that's been achieved at a couple of different organizations along the way. So I think that would be pretty cool for your audience to learn about and discuss.
We're looking forward to that. So why don't we start off with share a story or an example of something that really unlocked growth, and also
Sure.
how you did that, and how we'll just lean in with questions.
Sure. Let's start with a trucking example, because that's a little bit more on the sales side, and then we can move to some of the more marketing examples. So when I joined this trucking company, the approach to sales was we're going to have several very experienced sales personnel that are going to, through the relationships that they've developed over decades, bring in new sales, which kind of worked, right? Because people had long-standing relationships, people that they'd been drinking with or were school friends with or played sports with, they'd build relationships. And that's pretty good when you're signing $500,000 contracts in trucking. However, that's not a way how to scale a business, because you can't just grow another person who's got 40 years of experience in trucking, right? That takes 40 years to grow that person.
Yeah.
And there's not that many out in the world, and most of your competitors are also looking for that exact same type of person. So I built an entirely new type of sales force at this trucking company, and it was a bit of a risk, candidly, right? Because the rest of the executive team thought it was a crazy idea. But I said, let's go hire some people right out of college who know nothing about sales, who know nothing about trucking. We'll teach them sales, we'll teach them about trucking, and we'll arm them with a lot of technology, whether you call it Zoom Info, HubSpot, whatever, right? Whereas the traditional sales force was focused much more on face-to-face interpersonal communication, this new sales force, which was younger, less experienced, or non-experienced, in fact, their approach was much more volume. And the cool thing is, even though they knew nothing about how to sell or how to close a deal or about trucking, within about 6 to 9 months, they were actually outperforming the traditional sales force, because we discovered that while relationships matter, people really care. Number one, sales is a volume game. You have to reach out to a lot of people. Most people are going to say no, even if you have a good relationship with them. So you might as well deal with a high volume game. Number two, being enhanced by technology makes you so much more effective and so much more efficient, especially when you're trying to do something at scale. And for any company that's trying to grow, the first million or 2 million is hard. 2 million to 10 million is easy, but then from 10 million to 100 million is really hard. And that requires you to have your sales and marketing structured in a fundamentally scalable, institutionalized way.
Got it. And do you mind sharing some more in depth about what were some of the, like you said, automation and use of technology in the process? What were some of the things that you did?
Sure. And firstly, nothing that I did was revolutionary, but it's in the context of trucking, it may be revolutionary. In general, in B2B, it's not necessarily revolutionary. So First of all, we actually had people use a CRM to collect information and use that information. So we use HubSpot, but I'm sure Zoho or Salesforce or anything else could work. But just collecting all the leads you have, making sure you follow up with the very basic sales 101 level stuff. Number two, giving them a way to access those leads, right? We were using Zoom Influence Sales Navigator, but again, there's Apollo, there's many other tools out there that allow you to figure out who your leads are and do targeted research. Number three, building a small social media presence and a good website so that people could figure out we existed. That's really basic. Even in industries where websites are less important, turns out they're really important because the very first thing anybody does is figure out who you are. They Google you, right? They look at your website, and it's very important to have a professional website that communicates, hey, we're Fusion, we do trucking for this industry. It was very easy that you could go to us, and if you wanted to talk to, if we weren't right for you, if you were looking for something else, go to somebody else's website. But if we are right for you, we make it very easy for you to talk to a salesperson within minutes, right? Which sounds, again, very obvious, but it's not necessarily how the trucking industry functions. The trucking industry is much more still today, even today, run through phones, right? Even though people don't want it to be run by phones, that's just the way people think.
Cool. Like what you just described, having a good storefront, which is a website, having a good story to tell, having good social media presence, having a system where you can actually maintain and manage the records and the leads, and then make sure that the right kind of message is being delivered to them at the right time, and just keeping them engaged and warmed up, and obviously be ready to engage and sell to them when they're ready to buy, basically. It's like something that we live and breathe at Growth Leaders. And that's what I would say is like probably 90% of what we do is help customers do that. And we see that you mentioned that trucking, it may not be something that is very obvious, even in industries that it is very obvious. We work with a lot of B2B software companies. The processes and technology is still as broken as it ever was. Yep, it's really, and here we are like talking about AI and the impact of AI and how it is going to transform the marketing and the sales function, and really how companies are able to provide great customer service, and also like really kind of manage the whole life cycle of a customer in a much, much more automated way. But orchestrating that automation is the art, basically, and the science. So it's not that easy. It's easier said than done. Yeah, let's use AI. What is it that we can use AI for? How do we implement it? And then how do we manage it beyond that point? Yes, we can automate a lot of things, but there has to be some thoughtfulness that goes into it. But anyhow, that was wonderful. Like you said, the trucking industry, not very obvious to adopt to technology and processes. I have an interesting story as well. This is way back in 2000. We used to sell supply chain software, and trucking industry was one of our target industries. And it was so damn hard to really get the message across, because most of these are like large operators with anywhere between 2,000 to 10,000 vehicles. But the founder CEO is somebody who actually drove the first truck, that company, when it started. And he still has the same mentality and he likes to grind versus adopt to technology. And that used to be the hardest part. Try to show them like what is possible and how it can be done. But let's like fast forward a little bit and talk about IdeaScale. So what are you doing in IdeaScale these days, and what's keeping you busy, and anything new exciting that you have done that has transformed the growth for you guys? I know you guys have had amazing growth since you joined as CEO.
Yeah, so actually had very limited or zero marketing presence. We had 0 people in marketing. We had no social media presence. We had no outbound marketing campaigns, truly nothing. We were a couple of salespeople supported by no marketing presence whatsoever. So over the past 2 years, we've gone from having 0 marketing team, 0 marketing presence to actually being quite good at marketing. And I'll give a couple examples of the things that we did, particularly the ones that have been very successful. Number one is on organic and SEO content marketing. 2 years ago, we didn't have a blog. We started a blog, and today that blog generates 10 times more organic traffic than my next 9 competitors combined. And they're paying for paid digital advertising, and I'm paying $0, and I'm still getting more web traffic. And the way we accomplished this was we took a very different tactic to our blog than I think a lot of organizations do. A lot of organizations write a blog as a way to sell their product. Their blogs are basically articles on, here's 100 great ways to use my software. We did none of that. Every single blog article on IdeaScale's blog is actually high quality content for best practices for innovation practitioners. So if you are, that's the industry I play in, innovation practitioners. So if you want to learn what the best way to run a fishbone diagram is, or what the ISO 56001, which is the standard for innovation best practices, or what are cultural changes you need to make, whatever questions you have on the actual content of innovation, we are the best resource in it. That's why if you look at where we rank, it's usually some common, if you Google anything related to innovation, it's some combination of us, Wikipedia, and Harvard Business Review. We're top 3 in any language, any content area related to innovation. And obviously that's resulted in when Google's algorithm realizes we're putting out really high quality content, and therefore people come to our website. And obviously one impact of that is some small proportion of people who come to our website realize these guys are really good at the innovation side. Maybe we should give their software a chance, even though we're never advertising our software.
Yeah.
And one practical impact of that is today, or when we started, we had one inbound lead coming every 3 months. Today, we have about 30 every month. So that's a 90x improvement in high quality inbound leads, which is pretty good for a B2B business of our size.
Absolutely.
That's on our SEO marketing piece. Should I go on for the other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. What else was like something?
Sure. A second area is on social media. We historically had we had a LinkedIn page, but we didn't do anything for it. Nobody was posting to it. So over the past year or so, we've made it a team effort. So rather than having one social media marketing manager, we gave a lot of people around the company access to our social media accounts and said, look, anything that is relevant to IdeaScale, feel free to post it. And we gave people a lot of trust. And then we also use some AI-generated posts as well.
That was going to be my next question. You guys are all about innovation. Are you guys leveraging AI as a innovation and accelerator in your sales and marketing mix, and how are you doing it?
Yeah, so we're using AI a ton in kind of 3 areas. Actually, number one, as a company, we're using AI everywhere just to improve our productivity. Our marketers are using it to generate content. Our salespeople are using it to write emails. Our engineers are using it, co-pilots, to write code faster and better. I'm using it for better decision-making, to double-check decisions that I'm making, or to review my analysis. So we're using it everywhere. Specifically to marketing, I think that there's 3 sub-areas where we're using it. Number one, auto-generated content. So whether that be for our blog or our social media, we're using AI to auto-generate content. Number 2, we're using it to optimize human-generated content. Let's SEO optimize this, or let's optimize this for virality. And number 3, we're using it to supplement content. So let's imagine that you've written a great human-written blog, but you need an image that perfectly fits that. Let's use an AI to generate an image for it, or to write an addendum, or to write metadata for it. That can be used in other contexts.
What are the tools that you're using for achieving this, if you don't mind sharing?
And what are
the tools, the different tools that you're using? Is it ChatGPT?
We've left it to everyone. On the engineering side, we're using GitHub Copilot, which is probably best in class for the software engineers. For everyone else, we've left it up to the individual in terms of what tool they want to use. The 3 tools that are, again, pretty standard nowadays that people are using are Anthropic, ChatGPT, or Gemini for text-based recognition, and then something like DALL-E or Midjourney for graphical generation. Yep. Although now Gemini and a couple of these other tools are multimodal and can put out graphics as well. But we've left it to the individual. Sometimes I personally use a lot of Gemini and ChatGPT for text. But then when I need code or graphics, I go to Anthropic because I think it's a little bit smarter there. But we've left that up to the individual employee on what tool they like the most.
Got it. That's wonderful. Yeah. So we talked about AI and how you guys are using that, helping you accelerate and accentuate the content that you guys are creating. And then in return, that's actually bringing you quality traffic. And some of that is actually becoming business. Anything else that you would like to share about what you're doing at IdeaScale?
I think the third area, and this is less on the marketing side, more on the sales side, is historically we were very much a US-focused organization. We call it US and Canada, North America-focused organization. Over the past year, we've expanded globally because one realization we had, and perhaps we should have had it before, was the problems that American corporations are facing are ultimately not that different from what a Chinese corporation or Indian corporation or French corporation or government, like we serve a lot of US government agencies, the French government, the Japanese government, the German governments are facing the same problems around how do they become more innovative and evolve to address evolving demands from their constituents or customers. So starting this year, we expanded globally. We made a couple hires in Latin America, in South Africa, in India, Southeast Asia, and Japan. And when you put all that together, the cool thing is we discovered that number one, we validated our hypothesis that there are all these opportunities. But secondly, the good thing we did was we also didn't just hire a salesperson, leave them by themselves. We actually put in some marketing efforts behind each of those countries or language groups. So that made it a lot easier for our salespeople to be successful and generate opportunities, whether opportunities coming through our marketing efforts or through their own relationship building, which was buttressed by some of the marketing that we'd put in place before them.
That's amazing. In fact, I think you brought up like three very different and unique things that I think any business can adapt. One is really kind of be more digital and more modern in their approach, how they attract and convert customers. Two, I think, is really more of like, the forward-looking leverage AI in the mix so that you can use that as an accelerator across the funnel. And then lastly, I really like what you just shared about. It's a very traditional thing to do. Find who else can be your customer and start knocking on their doors, basically. It doesn't have to be limited by geography. It doesn't have to be limited by, find your ICP, and it could be global. And the world we live in today is very agile from that perspective. It's very easy to do business across the borders. It's very easy to penetrate markets that you may not have thought of being possible like a couple of decades ago, especially in technology and product-led growth. It is so much easier to go and sell anywhere in the world while you're sitting anywhere in the world. But anyhow, this has been a very interesting conversation, Nick, and I really want to thank you for being a wonderful guest. For the listeners, I hope you guys have been able to learn something here and would be able to actually implement it in your businesses. And wishing everybody a very successful remainder of the 2024 and obviously the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Taran.